The Super Bowl was over. The confetti had fallen, but it wasn't red and gold. It was green and white. The roar of Eagles fans filled the stadium, a sharp contrast to the deafening silence on the Chiefs' sideline. Players stood frozen, their faces blank, staring at the field as if willing time to reverse itself. Travis Kelce clenched his fists, his jaw tight, his breathing slow and deliberate. Patrick Mahomes stood beside him, helmet in hand, staring at the scoreboard, as if still processing the loss. The walk back to the locker room felt longer than ever. The sounds of celebration echoed through the tunnel, but for the Chiefs, there was only the weight of what could have been. No one spoke. No one needed to. The pain was mutual, understood. As they stepped inside, the heavy door slammed shut behind them, locking them into an atmosphere thick with frustration and disappointment. Travis dropped onto a bench, his muscles aching from the brutal game. His jersey clung to his skin, damp with sweat. He rubbed his hands together, staring at the floor. Mahomes sat across from him, gripping his helmet so tightly his knuckles turned white. A deep sigh broke the silence. Then, the sound of something hitting the floor. Chris Jones had thrown his helmet across the room, his frustration boiling over. "We had that game," Jones muttered, shaking his head. "We had it." Some players nodded, others just stared blankly. A few rookies sat hunched over, still in full gear, their heads down, trying to process the loss. One of them, barely above a whisper, spoke. "What do we do now?" The question lingered in the air, unanswered. Then, Kelsey stood up. His movements were slow, deliberate. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of his teammates one by one. "We keep going," he said finally, his voice steady, controlled. "I know it hurts. I know it feels like everything we worked for just disappeared. But you know what? This moment right here doesn't define us. What defines us is what we do next." Mahomes looked up, his expression unreadable. The tension in the room didn't lift, but it shifted. Eyes that had been filled with doubt now held something else. Determination. "You want to be pissed? Be pissed? You want to be frustrated? Go ahead. But if you're going to let this be the end of our story, then you don't belong in this room." Silence. Then, slowly, heads started to nod. Chris Jones exhaled sharply, his anger giving way to something else. Acceptance. "We ain't done yet," Mahomes finally said, a small smirk forming on his lips. The moment could have ended there, but then the locker room door creaked open. A staff member stepped inside, holding a small red box. "Coach left this for you guys," he said, placing it on the bench. Mahomes exchanged a glance with Kelsey before reaching for the box. Inside, neatly stacked, were handwritten letters, one for every player. Kelsey picked his up, his brow furrowing as he unfolded it. His eyes scanned the words, and his chest tightened. "You may not have won the game, but you won something bigger. Stay hungry. Stay ready. This isn't the end." The signature at the bottom was simple. Andy Reid. Mahomes let out a quiet chuckle, shaking his head. "Man, Coach is different." One by one, players read their letters. Some smiled. Others exhaled, nodding to themselves. The room that had been filled with silence just minutes ago now carried an energy, subtle but strong. As the night wore on, players left the locker room, some still lost in thought, others already thinking about next season. Mahomes and Kelsey were among the last to leave. "One more?" Mahomes asked, looking at Kelsey as they reached the tunnel. Kelsey smirked. "One more." The next morning, the internet exploded. A leaked video of Kelsey's speech spread like wildfire. This is why Travis Kelce is the heart of the Chiefs. No other team has leadership like this. 2026 Revenge Tour starts now. Even NFL legends like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning chimed in, praising the leadership shown in the locker room. And then, Kelsey himself tweeted two simple words: "Not done." Patrick Mahomes followed with, "Run it back." And just like that, the Kansas City Chiefs had already started their next chapter. Because championships aren't just won on the field, they're won in the moments that test you the most. Later that day, Kelsey sat alone in the Chiefs' weight room, staring at his reflection in the mirror. The doubts still lingered. The exhaustion from the season still sat heavy on his shoulders, but something else had taken root. Resolve. If this was going to be their redemption arc, he was going to give everything he had left. His phone buzzed, a text from Mahomes. "Work out tomorrow. No excuses." Kelsey grinned, shaking his head. Bet. The weight of the season was still on him, but this time it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like fuel. The setbacks, the near misses, the heartbreak, they weren't just scars. They were the foundation of something bigger. The following morning, long before the sun rose, Kelsey was already on the field. Alone. The crisp morning air stung against his skin, the field still covered in dew. He ran routes, pushed himself harder than he had in weeks. Every sprint, every rep, was a reminder that the fire was still there. A car pulled up in the distance. Mahomes stepped out, tossing a football in the air. "You started without me?" Kelsey smirked. "Somebody's gotta set the pace." The two jogged onto the field, their breath visible in the cold morning air. No cameras, no reporters, no pressure, just two champions getting ready for another run. Because the story wasn't over yet. It was just getting started. If you believe in the power of resilience, hit that like button and comment "Not done yet" below. Let's celebrate greatness together.